Hi everyone, today we'll have a talk on classification of antibiotics, and this classification of antibiotics will be based on four categories. That is effect on the bacteria, range of coverage, mechanism of action, and the chemical structure of the antibiotics. So starting with effect on the bacteria, and this can be classified into two groups, that is bacteriostatics and the bactericidal antibiotic. So for the case of this and bacteriostatic, these are antibiotics that are able to inhibit the growth of bacteria. And example of these bacteriostatic antibiotics include the tetracycline, macrolide, clindamycin, trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole, linezolid, and chloramphenicol. So for the case of bactericidal, these are antibiotics that have ability to kill the bacteria. And example of these bactericidal antibiotics include the aminoglycosides, beta-lactam antibiotics, and fluoroquinolone and glycopeptides. So based on the effect of um, on the effect of on the bacteria, those are the classifications. But we have the range on coverage, and we have also two classes, that is narrow spectrum antibiotics and the broad spectrum antibiotics. So for the case of narrow spectrum antibiotics, these are antibiotics that are active against a selected group of bacterial types. So this might be based on the whether they act only on gram positive, or they can just act only on gram negative. And example of these narrow spectrum antibiotics, this include the old penicillin, that is a penicillin G, macrolides, and the vancomycin. So for the case of broad spectrum antibiotics, these are antibiotics which have effective against a wide range of organisms, that is include the gram positive and gram negative bacteria. So they can just act on both gram positive and gram negative bacteria. And example of these broad spectrum antibiotics include the doxycycline, aminoglycosides, quinolone, carbapenem, piperacillin pibutazobactam, amoxicillin clavulanic acid, also ampicillin can also be the broad spectrum antibiotics. So when we come to the other part, or whereby this is just a mechanism of action, in mechanism of action we have different classes of these antibiotics, and we have those antibiotics that act only on the cell wall. And this example of this antibiotic that they act only on the cell wall include the penicillin, vancomycin, and the cephalosporins. These are they just act on cell wall. But we have also the antibiotics, that the other class of antibiotics that act on disruption of the DNA. And this is one example is quinolone. They just act on the disruption of this DNA material. So the other class of antibiotics, which is based on the mechanism of action, is those which are act on protein synthesis. And example of antibiotics which they act on the protein synthesis process is tetracycline and also gentamicin are the example of these antibiotics. But we have also the those antibiotics which they are related to the chemical structure of the antibiotics, and we have the quinolones, and this they have a bicyclicline. And example of this fluoroquinolone, we have the ciprofloxacin, norfloxacin. These are the just example of fluoroquinolone. But also we have the cephalosporin, the antibiotic nature of this fluoroquinolone. The cephalosporin are based on the beta lactam ring. And also we have those which are penicillin group, which they have the beta-lactam ring, cereulide ring, and the side chain. And the activity on the antibiotics is based on beta-lactam. And the last thing, according to this classification, is based on is macrolide, of which they composed of microcyclic ring, microcyclic lactone of different sizes. Thank you very much.